It's on the ground.
Rodgers on the move. End zone for Adams. He's got it. Touchdown.
They're going to have a defensive end out there.
3rd and 1. Rodgers under pressure again and just has to flip it, and it is going to be gone.
Jones has 98 of them. Play fake here, though. Rodgers going for it all, looking to bring it open. He's got it. Lazard, gonna go. Touchdown. They're able to change.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome to another rendition of the Titletown Lounge podcast. I am your host, Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. Of course, I am joined by this handsome man to my right, Brandon. You can find him on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. And of course, you can find the podcast itself at Titletown Lounge on Twitter. Gentlemen, ladies, everyone, we have our first preseason game in the books. We did see Jordan Love for the first time in action yesterday. A lot to dissect from that game, a lot to dissect from Jordan Love. But first, Brandon, how you doing, bud?
Doing good. I'm doing good. It's a good time to be a Wisconsin sports fan. The Bucks are still champions. The Brewers are in first place still, and now we have the Green Bay Packers kicking off the 2021 season. Lot of expectations up there in Titletown, as there always are. So it's an exciting time, and I'll be honest with you, Rhino, I am over summer and I'm looking forward to fall, and football means fall, so I'm excited.
I can tell you what, after that heat wave we had for the last week and a half or so, I'm ready for fall. I'm ready for hoodie weather. I'm ready for bonfires. I'm ready for. I'm always ready to drink beer, but I like drinking beer when it's a little cooler out too. So. But no, football is back. It's good to see. Actually, first and foremost, it was great to see a full stadium yesterday. Mm-hmm. First time since
not
2019.
The Chicago game, not the Chicago game.
No. That one. That one was. Did they have a scrimmage or something yesterday? Because I saw that they had about 15,000 fans in the stadium for something.
And that was almost embarrassing for them because they were the first game on. They were the first game on national TV yesterday at 1:00 or noon. I think it was like 12:15, whatever time they kicked off. And you had, your second coming of your savior, according to Chicago,
of Jesus,
Justin Fields, and it did feel like a weird practice. Like there was nobody there. It was weird.
And we talked about this in the lobby before the show. Green Bay put more fans in the stands for family night than the Bears did for the first showing of Justin Fields. After all of that stuff you saw on Twitter and on social media about Justin Fields, I can't believe the dude didn't have angel wings on the field yesterday, the way everyone has spoke about him preseason so far.
We got
for them to be at, what was it, 50% capacity? That was a little embarrassing for Chicago. But nevertheless, we did see our guy, our young star in Jordan Love. I'm going to call him that right now. He looked good. He looked good. I'm gonna keep it real. Oh God, Brandon.
You know, I come hot with the banners. I'm ready to go.
I was scrolling through Twitter yesterday after the game, and the one thing that really irritates me about this fan base, and I'm gonna speak poorly about this fan base a little bit, so my apologies in advance. We are a very entitled fan base. We're a very spoiled fan base, and I think a lot of people were expecting to see Jordan Love look like prime Aaron Rodgers last night, and that's just not fair. The man hasn't played since, what was it, January 20th of 2020, January 25th of 2020.
Days.
603 days. He has not thrown a football in an actual game. And, there was people like, oh, well, he only had the one good drive and had a bunch of 3-9. He looked good. He looked good yesterday. He looked about what you would hope he would look in his first game in almost 2 years. And, let's not forget, 30 guys didn't play yesterday. Devin Funchess was the only opening day roster wide receiver that saw the field. We had no Cobb. We had no Adams, no MBS, no Alan Lazard, no Bob Tonyan. We saw a lot of Jay Sternberger yesterday. No Aaron Jones. We saw, quite a bit of A.J. Dillon, but A.J. Dillon's a second-year running back, so of course we're going to see him. But, half of the offensive line was out. So, for a lot of the game, we saw very vanilla play calling from Matt LaFleur. We saw very basic, short passes, easy reads. I think the closest that we got to a natural Matt LaFleur offense was that touchdown drive that Jordan Love had. 89 yards, 6 straight completions on that drive. He had the 35-yard pass over the middle of the field to Jay Sternberger. The drive culminated in the 22-yard screen pass to Kylan Hill. He looked great on that drive. He looked phenomenal. His footwork was great. His passes were crisp. They were clean. They were, for the most part, right on the money. That one pass to Devin Funchess over the middle with the spectacular grab by Funchess, by the way.
That was nice. Yeah.
That was a little bit of a off-target throw, but that's going to happen. He still put it in a place for Funchess to make a play, which is all that matters. So outside of that drive, they weren't really asking Love to do a lot. They were just throwing plays out there to see what would happen. It kind of felt like it wasn't your normal Matt LaFleur offense. But I thought he looked great. What are your thoughts on it?
I would agree with you with the fan base. I've been saying this for a while, like with this, this fan base, 2 Super Bowls in 30 years, and a lot of fan bases, especially the rival fan bases, will make fun of that, because you should have had more. And there's an argument that you could have, and you should have, and you might have. But again, winning's hard. Winning, like we just talked about prior to the show, winning championships are hard. They're supposed to be hard. Outside of New England, like no other team has really been that dominant outside of, I guess New York had a little bit of a run, for a few years, but it's hard. So the expectations in Green Bay are always like super sky high, and they're always, you live and die with every game. And I'm guilty of it because I'm the same way. I want my team to win every single game. And when I say, it's just a game, it doesn't matter. I still want them to win. It still ruins my day if they lose. But it was, if you walked away from this preseason game and had any negative thoughts, tweets, whatever about Jordan Love, you're just, you probably have a horrible life, because there's nothing in that game that you could have taken away as a negative impact. The guy hasn't played in 603 games or 603 days. That's almost 2 years. Again, and I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday. This is basically his rookie year. I mean, it really is. I know he played last year, and people will jump on Twitter and say, well, he was in the system last year and he should have, he's more comfortable. Kind of. He was the 3rd quarterback last year. So he got barely any reps in practice, if any. He was learning how a new system. He was learning what plays are, what the calls were, the verbiage of the Matt LaFleur system. He didn't have an offseason because of COVID. He did not have what Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and these guys had this year, where they got to go in to rookie orientation. They got to go to rookie mini camps. They got to go to mini camps. Jordan Love had nothing until training camp. And if people remember, training camp was 3 weeks, I believe. It was really short. It started
about
like
a month.
Middle.
Yep.
Yeah, it started at like the first week into August and went into the regular season. There was no live action. The guy hasn't seen any live action. He goes on the field and he's 12 of 17 for 122 yards and a touchdown with a passer rating of 110.4. What's not to like about that? He's only going to get better. He's not going to be a Hall of Fame player in his first season, in his first preseason game. And keep in mind, I'm seeing a lot of Justin Fields and Jordan Love comparison. For whatever reason, that's what people want to do. Justin Fields is going to be a good football player. He's going to be good. Like, he's a good player. Like, there's nothing that anybody is saying negatively about him as far as his play on the field. They're 2 different quarterbacks. They're 2 different players. They're in 2 different systems. They're in 2 different scenarios. Okay. Justin Fields was beneficiary of an offseason this year. He had everything that I just said before. So don't compare. Stop comparing the 2. They're 2 different. Jordan Love is a project quarterback. He's a prospect. Justin Fields might be ready. Trevor Lawrence, Lance, what's his name? Trey Lance is. They're probably more ready right now, but you can't compare them. They're just 2 different. So again, like there's a lot of positives, in my opinion, to take away from Jordan Love's game yesterday, and we saw it yesterday. He didn't force anything. He took what the defense gave him. There was some checkdowns. There was some really good throws. That throw to Jay Sternberger in the middle of the field for 47 yards, like. That pocket was closing. Like that was closing. Yep. He had a hand on his shoulder, and he fitted it in between 3 defenders and in a spot where only Jace Sternberger could get it. It was a great game. I thought it was great. You hope the injury's not serious, with the shoulder. I don't think it is. Jordan Love even said it wasn't anything serious, but again, he's got to give him time. He's only going to improve from here.
And let's keep in mind, both Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers are going into another year of Matt LaFleur's system, but Aaron Rodgers played every game in his first year of Matt LaFleur's system, and it still took him an entire year to take that step forward. Jordan Love, all the things you said, he didn't have the preseason. He didn't have all of the training camps that he should have. He didn't have all of the practices that he should have. And it's going to take him longer to take that step forward in the system than Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So I didn't go into this game expecting much. I even tweeted out yesterday, I didn't want to see, or I wasn't expecting to see the great stats. I wanted to see, the footwork. I wanted to see the clock management, the game management. I wanted to see how well he did in the 2-minute drive. And there was a lot of positives to take away. Like I said earlier, they didn't ask him to do a whole lot outside of that one drive. And when they did, he produced. And that's what you want to see out of your second year rookie quarterback. But there was a couple questionable decisions he made. He had to pass across the field to the sideline. I think he fitted into Jace, and he was around three guys. Probably not a throw you want him to make, but the throw was in a position where he could have caught it. There was another one. I think the ball bounced right off of Funchess' hand. He had to jump. He was behind three guys.
Yep.
The fourth down play.
Yep.
That was put in a place where Funchess could have made the play.
He could have.
And he didn't get his second hand up to make contact with the ball. But yeah, if you went into this game looking for the negatives, hoping to see the negatives, then why'd you even watch?
Oh, and there was a lot of that. There was a lot of
I saw that all over Twitter yesterday, and it really irritated me. Like, there were people that watched that game hoping that Love would fail, or hoping that they could be like, see, I told you we should have never drafted him. I'm not going to name names, but there are some people that I saw yesterday tweeting, please lock up Rodgers for the rest of his life. We should have never drafted Jordan Love, like, in his first preseason game. These are the comments. Just for reference, Aaron Rodgers was 2 of 6 for 7 yards in his first preseason game. A lot of people forget Rodgers was not good in his first preseason. He wasn't really that good in his second preseason either. So making that comparison, having those expectations, and you talked about it pre-show, so I'm gonna steal a little bit of your thunder. Imagine if we had Twitter, or if Twitter was as big as it was back when Aaron Rodgers was a rookie and in his second year in the system.
Yep.
People would have been saying, please lock up Brett Favre for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And look at what Aaron Rodgers turned into. I'm not saying Jordan Love is the next Hall of Fame quarterback in succession, but I think there were a lot more positives to take away than negatives. Another guy that I want to touch on, who I really hope they do lock up long-term, Devin Funchess. That dude is probably in the best shape of his entire career. He came into camp 10 pounds lighter. He was listed at 237 preseason. They showed his game weight yesterday, 225. Athletically speaking, he may be the most athletically gifted wide receiver the Packers have had probably ever, or at least since Sterling Sharp. Now, I'm not saying, before people attack me, I'm not saying Devin Funchess is Sterling Sharp, but just the athletic talent, the build that he has. I mean, he's right up there with some of the best talent we've seen at wide receiver in 25 years. So I thought he looked fantastic. I really hope they keep him. I really hope he continues to develop into the guy that we're seeing in these preseason games and the camp videos. I think him and Aaron Rodgers could have a great year together. Having a solidified number 2 option on the other side of the field from Davante Adams, and not just a deep threat guy like MVS. I'm talking about a guy that's versatile. You can use him deep down the field, or you can use him over the middle of the field, or you can use him in short passing situations as well. Having a solidified number 2 on the opposite side of the field from Davante Adams could make this offense extremely scary. And so I really like what I saw to Devin Funchess, and I hope that continues to trend in the way that it is. What'd you think?
I believe I was on the Devin Funchess hype train a couple weeks ago.
You were.
And I know there's guys that are built like him. You compared Allen Lazard size-wise to him, and you're right. Like they are, if you put them next to each other, they're kind of identical. But there's something different about Funchess. He's longer. He's got a little bit longer of a reach. His legs are a little bit quicker than Allen Lazard. Not taking anything away from Allen Lazard, but they're two different types of receivers. Yeah. They're built a little bit differently. And you heard about it in preseason, with the training camp. People were talking about Jordan Love and Devin Funchess have a little bit of a connection. And then you saw it in family night. For those that did tune in, you could see it. He was targeting, he was hitting Devin Funchess too on a bunch of different throws and different routes. And you could see that connection with those two. And you look at a guy last night who played with Jordan Love for half the game, and then Kurt Benkert for the second half of the game. 6 receptions for 70 yards. He was only targeted 8 times. That's pretty darn good. You can only imagine with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And also keep in mind, Devontae Adams will be on that field as well, and he's going to draw a lot of attention.
Yep.
I would only imagine that Devin Funchess' numbers will continue to trend upwards, especially with Matt LaFleur not having a vanilla play calling, as we all see in preseason. You're going to see him, I think, be a big impact this year. I'm a big Devin Funchess fan. When he was in Carolina, I remember watching, really when he was in Michigan, because I'm a Wisconsin fan, I remember watching him in college and then went to Carolina, and he put up some really good numbers with Cam Newton. And now he's obviously with Aaron Rodgers, took a huge pay cut to remain with Green Bay. So my expectations are pretty high. I think he's the 4th receiver on this team.
I went from saying, or at least debating whether or not he would even make the team when he first announced that he was coming back for the 2021 season. I had the conversation of, I understand he took the pay cut. He wants to be here. There's a possibility he may not. Now, the discussion is he could probably be ahead of Allen Lazard on the depth chart in terms of starting. I genuinely think it's going to be Adams, Cobb, Funchess for your starting 3 wide receiver, 1 running back set. And if that's the case, if the one thing I was afraid about Funchess was his motivation coming into the season. He has had issues with, not giving 100% at all times. He had the issues in Carolina where he came into camp overweight a couple of seasons. I think also was it Buffalo? Or no, in Indianapolis. He went to Indianapolis after.
But he only played 2 games.
He came into camp out of shape. Was the conversation around Funchess when he came into camp with Indy? He was out of shape.
Yeah,
he's in the best shape of his career. You can see
really
that.
Good. Yeah, he looks really good.
And athletically speaking, we did have the conversation about which wide receiver was bigger, faster, etc. Athletically speaking, I think he puts Allen Lazard to shame.
Yeah,
his agility, his route running, I think he puts Allen Lazard to shame in that sense. So, yeah, it's been really great to see what Devin Funchess has put on the field so far, and hopefully that continues to trend in the right direction. Another guy that I saw last night really kind of come out of the shadows was Oren Burks.
Yeah,
did Oren Burks, did he flip the switch finally? Did he figure it out? Because he had some great plays last night. He was all over the field. He was in the backfield. He was making tackles in the second progression of the field. He was all over the place. And one of the things I discussed about Joe Barry quite a bit on the show is his ability to take, I don't want to call them no-name middle linebackers, but maybe second or third tier middle linebackers and turn them into Pro Bowlers. He did that in Los Angeles. He did that in Tampa. Tampa had great middle linebackers, but he upped the middle linebacker play in Tampa. If he can have that kind of impact on the Packers, you're looking at a potential top 5 defense in Green Bay. We know the secondary is going to be improved. We know that the defensive line is going to be improved. The X factor with that defense, the one hole that you could really pinpoint was their run defense, the middle linebacker play. If that middle linebacker play steps up in 2021, I think they're going to be a top 10 defense, top 5 defense. I think it's going to be there. That's the one thing that really killed them outside of the Kevin King issues in the secondary. They let Tampa run all over them in that NFC Championship game once again. A couple years ago, it was San Francisco running for 200 yards. The run defense has always been the crutch of the Packers defense. If that gets solidified, if that gets shored up this season, I'm calling top 5 defense. Calling it right now.
Oh, they were top 10 last year.
Top 5, I meant. Sorry.
No, I know what you mean. But yeah, you would imagine they're going to get better. Just want to give a quick shout out. My buddy Jake, he is a friend of mine. He's actually a Bears fan, so he's tuning in. I think he's trying to gain some inside knowledge and spread it down to Matt Nagy down in Chicago. But just to answer his question, he says, honest question, where would Funchess fit? And then he listed all the Green Bay receivers: Adam Lazard, MVS, Cobb, Rodgers, even Jones goes into the slot. And just to answer your question, Jake, that's what the difference between Matt LaFleur is versus most of the NFL coaches. everybody has a role. Everybody slides into. You'll see Amari Rodgers and Aaron Jones in the backfield. You'll see AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones in the backfield. The creativity with Matt LaFleur, look, it's endless for the most part. And let's be quite honest. Let's call it what it is. Randall Cobb is always hurt. He's going to miss 2 or 3, 4 games throughout the season at some point, probably for an injury. MVS has not proven a whole lot. Devin Funchess is a veteran. He's a guy that has shown in the preseason that he's got reliable hands and a guy that's going to catch, the tough passes. But to go back on your point, again, thank you, Jake, for tuning in. I do appreciate it, man. To go back on your point with Joe Barry, we all know Joe Barry wasn't the first choice for Matt LaFleur as defensive coordinator. We all know that. But I think when you're looking at the Packers defense and you're looking at a weakness on that defense, and you can go back, Rhino, probably 10 years, really, maybe outside that Super Bowl season in 2011, the weakest point of that defense has consistently been the middle linebacker. And what does Joe Barry do better than anybody? In Los Angeles, they consistently had top inside linebackers. Were they no-name guys? No, like you said, they're not, but they're not Pro Bowlers either. And he turned them into perennial Pro Bowlers and guys that went out and got paid. And that's what he did in LA. He wasn't a defensive coordinator in LA. He was a linebackers coach. And I said it yesterday in our group chat. I said, did Oren Burks just figure it out? Because we have never seen third round selection out of Purdue, a freak athletic ability. We have never seen Oren Burks do anything like he did last night. Now I get it. You temper the excitement and the expectations. It is only preseason. Houston didn't play a lot of their starters, as did Green Bay in preseason. Yeah, sure. But when you're focusing, and it goes back to Jordan Love thing as well, you're not focusing on team results. I don't care if they lost. I could care less.
They could have lost 70-7.
I don't care. What I want to see is potential. You saw it with Jordan Love. He's poised in the pocket. He has the control. The ball was tight. He didn't get flustered. He didn't get scared. Same thing with Oren Burks. You want to see the potential there. Now, I'm not saying Oren Burks is going to be the next great thing, and I'm not saying that Jordan Love is going to be either. But these are what preseason games are for, to see what guys individually can do. And look, they're trying out not only for the team that they're currently on, but they're putting out good tape for eventually maybe get caught up after they do, if they do get cut, with another team down the road. But Oren Burks, yeah, you're right, man. I shot out of a cannon for that sack. I mean, and the speed is there. He's a 4.5 guy coming out of Purdue. He's a talented dude as far as his athletic ability. He's
probably one of the most athletic linebackers the Packers have in terms of athleticism. Probably one of the best athletic linebackers we have.
And we did hear that Kamal Martin was working out with the outside linebackers. So there's something going on. Positive side, I think, with Joe Barry and Matt LaFleur working with those linebackers. I think you're going to see a big improvement this year.
See, I went into the game with this mindset yesterday. There was nothing we were going to see. There was nothing we were really going to be able to take away from that game that's going to apply to week one. Like we said at the beginning of the show, 30 starters were out. A lot of your key guys were out. The offensive line and the defensive line struggled big time yesterday, but
horrible.
A lot of the key guys weren't playing. I mean, so you can't look at the defensive and offensive line struggles yesterday and be like, oh my God, we're in for a long season, because that's not the case. But when it comes to Jordan Love, when it comes to Oren Burks, what you were seeing, and Funchess, what you were seeing is positive. It's I don't think you can apply everything you saw yesterday to week one, especially with Oren Burks. I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to get excited and say, oh my God, we're going to have, one of the best middle linebackers in football. But, that's how bad the middle linebacker play has been in Green Bay over the last decade. So looking at him and getting excited about it, I mean, that's a positive thing that you can take away. There was nothing in that game yesterday negatively that worries me, at least not yet. If we start getting the starters in there, in the third and fourth game, and then we keep struggling, that might be one thing. But there was nothing yesterday that, I woke up today and was like, oh man, I can't believe we got this going on. I can't believe we have that going on. There was nothing negative to pull away from that game and worry for week one. Another bright spot yesterday was Kylan Hill's versatility. Mm-hmm. We discussed in our group chat about special teams and who's going to, be a return man, who's going to be taking kickoffs, punts. We never once talked about Kylan Hill. And there he was returning kickoffs yesterday. His versatility is unbelievable. he's going to be another Aaron Jones style of running back where
reminds me a lot
put
of
him.
him. Yeah.
You can put him in the backfield. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up out wide. You can have him in motion in the backfield. And now his special teams versatility. I mean, I think he is a solidified running back 3 in Green Bay. And he may be one of the biggest steals of the entire 2021 draft. 7th round. And you have that kind of versatility and the potential for that kind of production out of him. That might be one of the steals of the draft in the 7th round. Not all 7th round guys even make their roster. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about what kind of impact he could potentially make in 2021. I mean, that's very exciting.
Oh, it goes again. Credit to Brian Gutekunst. Everybody wants to drag him through the mud with the Aaron Rodgers thing, but the guy has hit consistently in every draft. I mean, literally every draft that he's been a part of, he has hit, whether it's Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, you're talking about Elton Jenkins, who's, I don't think this is a stretch, who's going to be on his way to a potential Hall of Fame career the way he keeps going.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, he's just phenomenal. But I agree. When you took Kylan Hill in the 7th round, you were like, okay, he's a camp body. But then you turn on his Mississippi State film and you're like, how did this guy fall to the 7th round? He looks a lot like Aaron Jones. If you didn't watch the game last night, he took a screen pass for, I think it was like 20 something yards to the end zone. Yards, It looked just like Aaron Jones. I mean,
and he was shot out of a cannon when he caught that ball. I mean, really his acceleration was instant.
Did you catch who was leading the charge on that screen pass, though?
Not that I remember.
Center Josh Myers, 71. He was 10 yards downfield. He looked natural. He's huge for a center. Like, that guy's coming at you, from a center position. Good things can happen if you're a Packers fan. He was leading the charge yesterday in that second level, leading to that Kylan Hill touchdown. But again, I mean, it's just, Aaron Rodgers, and everybody that listens to the show or knows me knows that I love Aaron Rodgers. I love who the player he is, what he's done for Green Bay, Wisconsin, part-time Bucks owner. We love him, but we were sick of what he did in the offseason. Yeah. And a lot of what he did in the offseason took away from what this draft class was. And this could be, I'm not going to go say it's going to be the best one. It has the potential to be one of Brian Gutekunst's best drafts. When you talk about getting,
I'm not afraid to say that right now.
When you talk about getting Amari Rodgers in the 3rd round, Kylan Hill in the 7th, we'll see what Eric Stokes does in the 1st round. He's kind of also a little bit of a project, a guy that has all kind of like a Jordan Love, maybe not to the extreme of Jordan Love, but has all the physical tools. You can't teach 4.3 speed. Has everything there. I think he just needs to hone it in a little bit. But what Aaron Rodgers did was, because of the drama in the offseason, nobody talked about these guys. Nobody talked about what Kylan Hill did at Mississippi State. Nobody talked about TJ Slayton, who was a monster last night and clog in the middle, taking up 2 blockers almost every snap. Nobody talked about these guys because we were all infatuated with where Aaron Rodgers was potentially going to play in the 2021 NFL season. And what we didn't cover was a lot of these guys are going to have big impacts this year.
I want to address this question real quick. Friend of the show, Adam Kunos, asks, what changes do you expect for the second preseason game? Do you see more key players play or sit out? Well, I can tell you this, there's a lot of guys banged up. They're not significant injuries, but there's just a lot of guys dealing with, bruises, nicks and scratches, the equivalent of those. It all depends on how they're doing with their injuries. I do expect to see I'm going to call it a few more starters. I don't think we see a lot of the key guys. I think we see Devontae Adams sit again. Mm-hmm. I think we probably see Randall Cobb sit again. You'll see a couple of the younger guys probably start for the first time. I think we'll see some Eric Stokes action. We'll obviously see a little bit more Jordan Love. He was taken out because of the shoulder bruise or contusion, what have you. I don't really think there will be a whole lot of change. I think you might see a little bit more aggressive play calling out of Matt LaFleur for Jordan Love. I think they open up the playbook a little bit more and see what Jordan Love is capable of. But I kind of think you're going to see the same approach with week 2. Adam, week 3 is probably the week that you're going to see the change. You're going to see the majority of the starters in there. You're going to see probably the closest thing to Matt LaFleur's regular season offense in week 3. The concerns will probably be addressed week 3. I don't think there's really anything that you're going to see a whole lot of change for in week 2. I guess if there was one negative to pull away from yesterday, like if I had to, if you held a gun to my head and forced me to take a negative away, death, taxes, and shit special teams coverage. I mean, it's like a way of life.
Packers fans.
It's a way of life in Green Bay. I honestly, outside of Micah Hyde having, his 3 or 4 punt returns and Randall Cobb had a couple, I don't remember a time where we had great special teams.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I go back to 94. I've been watching the Packers, 93. I don't remember a time where their special teams was dominant. And, we don't need them to be dominant, but if they could just be mediocre even. I mean, there was such shit coverage on punt returns yesterday. It was terrible. It is week 1 of the preseason. Maybe that's something that can get cleaned up going forward. I saw a tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but it was Amari Rodgers had, what was it, a 15-yard punt return?
Yep.
And that's the longest punt return the Packers have had since December of 2019. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. That's I don't know. Amari Rodgers, hopefully he's the guy that we see back there returning punts, because I think his open field vision and his open field athleticism is probably one of the better weapons on the team. Maybe him or Kylan Hill. But special teams is probably the only pinpoint I would make for negativity yesterday.
Yeah, hard to argue that. A couple things I do want to hit. I think with the special teams, why it's fresh on my brain, Maurice Strayton, the new special tems coordinator, I think we got to give him a little bit more time. I think you're going to see an improvement as the year goes on, starting with the regular season. You're going to have more of it, probably rotate between Cobb and Amari Rodgers. I would assume real quick about Amari Rodgers in that game last night. He just looks so much like Randall Cobb. And I know
he does.
I know everybody is like, well, that's what everybody says, but holy cow, the way he catches those 5 and outs and the way that he, goes into his breaks looks just like Randall Cobb. But I would give Maurice Drayton a little bit of time. I agree with you. I also think we also got to keep in mind that a lot of these guys that played last night on special teams will not probably be on the 53. A lot of them are trying out for their own, future endeavors down the road with other teams. I don't think
practice squads.
You're not going to see a lot of those guys make the team. So I think it will get better. I agree with you. It's horrible. It always, for whatever reason, always seems horrible. But I think, with special teams is very important because we've seen, I know everybody likes to call Tom Brady the GOAT, but he's literally won Super Bowls off of special teams, go back to Adam Vinatieri. Like, they're an important part of the team. They're 1/3 of what the team is. So it's important to establish good special teams. And I think the Packers will be okay. Going back to Adam's question, and again, shout out to Adam. He's a frequent flyer of the Titletown Lounge, and we appreciate him. I don't think you see anybody for the rest of the preseason, and I'll tell you why. Matt LaFleur comes from Sean McVay. Sean McVay does not play any starters at all during preseason. You're not going to see – that list was 30 yesterday. It's probably going to be 27 next week, maybe 25.
And just real quick, if I apologize about interrupting, if I may, I do have the list here, and I'm not going to read off the whole list, but just keep in mind: Rodgers, Lazard, Adams, Cobb, King, Alexander, Zadarius Smith, David Bakhtiari, DeGuara, Billy Turner, Mercedes Lewis, Preston Smith. Pretty much 75% of your starters didn't play yesterday. They probably won't play week 2. Go ahead.
And that's the thing about too with like Jordan Love, and people want to talk about his numbers and his performance. Like you said, Devin Funchess was the only maybe roster starting player, opening day roster starting player that played in that game. Jace Sternberger played, but he's buried on that tight end depth chart. I have expectations for Jace, but let's be real, he's probably the 3rd tight end on the team if he's lucky. So again, it also shows you how good that performance was because he was playing with guys and 2nd and 3rd string offensive line who could not get anything going on the running game. They had 49 rushing yards, and I think 20 of them came in the 4th quarter with about 5 minutes left with Patrick Williams. So again, or Patrick Taylor. So, you got to understand your expectations when you're watching a preseason game. But to go on Adam's question, I don't think you're going to see any guys play in the preseason. We saw Aaron Rodgers win an MVP with no offseason, without anything. And he's obviously 38 years old. You're not going to run him out there for the preseason game. I don't think you're going to see under McCarthy. We used to see like the 3rd preseason game. Now keep in mind this year, there's only 3 games. So, prior to years, we would see the starters, they would play like a whole half. and kind of get you in that little bit of that season mode, shake off a little bit of the rust. But with Matt LaFleur, I just don't think you're going to see any guys play.
Yeah, and they don't need to. I mean, you're Aaron Rodgers, you're Devontae Adams. They don't need to play. Devontae is going to be the same guy he was last year. Rodgers, we already know, is going to be the same guy he's always been. So when you get to a point where you've been in the league for 8, 9, 10, in this case, 16 years with Aaron Rodgers, you don't need those preseason reps. You don't need the snaps. You're going to get the same repetition in practice as you would playing 5 snaps in a preseason game. So I personally don't have a problem with it. If I had to say, I don't want any of the starters in unless they absolutely need the repetitions. The younger guys, maybe. But I hope we don't see Rodgers. Well, we're not going to see Rodgers. I hope we don't see Adams. I hope we don't see Lazard. I hope we don't see, any of our, like Elgin Jenkins. I hope we don't see these guys. Aaron Jones, sit them all. We don't need to see them. I would rather see all of the backups play in preseason just so I know what we have in store, just in case there's an injury, just in case there's somebody who's underperforming. Randall Cobb is going to be the starter. He's going to be in the slot, but if he doesn't perform the way that he's supposed to, if he gets injured, which is probably inevitable, it's good to see Amari Rodgers out there and what he's capable of. So I'd rather play backups anyways. One thing I do want to touch on just very briefly, and I tweeted this out earlier in the week. Everyone has been focusing on this wide receiver core and how deep and how stacked it is, and who's going to be the 6th or 7th guy depending on how many they keep. No one's really focusing on that tight end room. Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, Josiah DeGuara, Jace Sternberger, the fifth tight end that I'm blanking on his name right now. Help me out here.
I'm blanking with you.
God bless. What is that guy's name? Anyways, their tight end room is extremely deep, and I'm extremely excited for that because I want to see some big boy packages. I want to see some Tonyan, DeGuara, Jones, and Dillon packages. 2 tight end, 2 running back set with maybe Funchess out wide so he could try and take one deep.
Dominique Daphne.
Daphne. God bless. I couldn't remember his name. That's when you have a deep tight end room. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. And
it'll be interesting to see if they keep all 5 on the active roster. I know in years past they've kept 3 and 4. I can't see them keeping 7 wide receivers. I just don't see that happening. I mean, a lot of people have been having the conversation about them only keeping 5. I think they keep 6. They definitely don't keep 7. Do they keep all 5 tight ends on the roster? See, that's a great problem to have. That's a great problem to talk about when you're having to discuss, God, man, who are we going to cut at this position? Who are we going to cut at that position? So I think that tight end room is stacked, and it's going to bring versatility to the offense. I mean, you're going to see some things that we probably haven't seen in Green Bay in a while this year, I think. I mean, you're going to see a lot of it's not going to be 5 wide like it was with McCarthy all the time. So I don't know. I'm very excited about the tight end room.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're going to see Robert Tonyan take that. Not that he didn't last year. Again, led the NFL tight ends and touchdowns last year. But I think you're going to see, again, Robert Tonyan kind of take that next step forward to solidify. Yeah. Like, this dude is seriously a top 5 tight end in the NFL. He catches everything. Obviously, Mercedes Lewis is going to be on this team. He re-upped, I think it was a 2-year deal with the Packers in the offseason, and the leadership. And look, he's about as valuable as a tackle in football as when it comes to run blocking. Yeah. The guy is as solid as they come. And I'm excited about Josiah DeGuara, another one that the Wisconsin sports media like to drag in the mud in that 2020 draft. And I am booking all my receipts because I think Jordan Love, I think A.J. Dillon, Josiah DeGuara, the first 3 picks for the Packers in the 2020 NFL draft are going to play big roles eventually on this team. A.J. Dillon, I think, is going to be that dude this year. Again, kind of a rookie year for him because he did play last year. But remember, he was out a month and a half for COVID, and he didn't have the offseason as well. Same thing with Jordan Love. So it's kind of a somewhat rookie year for A.J. Dillon as well. And Josiah DeGuara went out last year, and I believe the second game or the first game, it was real early against Minnesota. He tore his ACL.
Actually,
was that the first game?
I think it was. No, it was the second game. He played a full game because the Minnesota game was the game he took out 2 guys on 1 block.
That's what I mean. I think you're hearing a lot of the Packers beat reporters tweeting out that he's in the backfield a lot. And look, there's a lot of things you can do with a guy like Josiah DeGuara coming out of the backfield. He's got sure hands. He's quicker than he looks. And he can block. So Matt LaFleur is going to be able to create a lot of stuff for him. And Aaron Rodgers loves tight ends. He loves, the blanket of covering up a defense. So I think you're going to see, Josiah DeGuara have an impact this year. And obviously AJ Dillon, like I said, and then Jordan Love, showing a little bit of promise last night. But a name that we haven't really mentioned, and he didn't play last night, Juwan Winfrey, the receiver, who is making a splash at camp. I don't know who you cut from the receiver standpoint, because you're talking about, Equanimeous St. Brown, has potential. He probably should be. I mean, after he dropped that 2-point conversion in the NFC Championship game, I probably would have let him go. But, Devin Funchess has to be on this team. You know that.
Oh, he's 100% on the team.
Adams, Cobb, MVS, and Amari Rodgers are going to be on this team. Do you keep 6 versus 7? Here's another question for you, Rhino, and I'll present it to you. Do you keep 3 quarterbacks on an active roster?
No. I think with Jordan Love being in the second year in the system, he's obviously the solidified QB2. That's not even a conversation. It's not going to be between him and Kurt Benkert. As long as those 2 stay injury free, I think Kurt Benkert goes to the practice squad. I think they keep 2 quarterbacks. I think the only reason why they kept 3 quarterbacks last year, because historically speaking, under the Mike McCarthy regime, they only kept 2 quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It was Rodgers and Matt Flynn, or Rodgers and Scott Tolzien, or Rodgers and Brett Hundley. So I think the only reason why they kept 3 last year is because they had Jordan Love, but he didn't get the offseason. He didn't get the preseason. They had to have somebody in there who knew the system just in case Rodgers went down. And I've had this argument with so many Bear fans. Oh, Jordan Love couldn't even beat out Tim Boyle. Well, no shit, he couldn't beat out Tim Boyle. He didn't have a preseason. Tim Boyle had been there for a couple years. He knew the system. So, no, I think they keep 2 quarterbacks. I personally think they keep 6 wide receivers, and I'll list them off. Adams, MVS, Funchess, Lazard, Cobb, Rodgers. Those are the 6 they keep. I think Winfrey has had a phenomenal camp, but unfortunately, I think he's the one that's on the chopping block, because the problem is if you keep 7 wide receivers, then you have to eliminate 1 from your running back room or your tight end room. And I think those guys are a lot more versatile than keeping a Juwan Winfrey. If you think about it like this, and this is another thing I wanted to touch on that'll kind of play into this conversation. We're really underestimating how versatile this offense really is. You mentioned it with DeGuara lining up in the backfield. You realize you could see AJ Dillon in the slot at one point this season. You could see Amari Rodgers in the backfield, Amari Rodgers in the slot, Amari Rodgers out wide, Aaron Jones in the backfield, Aaron Jones in the slot, Aaron Jones out wide. I mean, there's a lot of versatility in your running back and your tight end room. I don't think you can justify keeping 7 guys in the wide receiver room and cutting someone from one of the other rooms. So 2 quarterbacks, 6 wide receivers, and then you go from there is what I think they do.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it?
It's a great problem to have.
Not to want to cut certain guys. And the thing about receivers with Green Bay is can any of these guys play special teams? And that's the issue that you're going to probably run into outside of maybe Lazard, I guess. You're not going to throw out Devontae Adams. You're not going to throw out Randall Cobb, maybe on returns. Amari Rodgers is the guy that you could probably play in there. Real quick, while I just remembered it. Why was Amari Rodgers playing in the 4th quarter last night? Late in the 4th quarter. And then he got hurt. I don't know if you saw that. He's fine. He got banged up on a play.
It was just banged up. But he did play into the 4th quarter, but he didn't have a whole lot of reps. No, I mean, he wasn't out there, every play. He didn't play 60 minutes yesterday.
It threw me off for a second to see, Amari Rodgers, what I would hope is a vital point, a part of your offense going forward into the regular season. It kind of threw me off there. But can any of these guys play, special teams? That's going to be, the thing that is probably going to either, keep you on a team or get you cut. And again, kind of the same thing with the tight end room. They're both really deep as far as, depth. it's a good problem to have. And the same thing with running backs. Obviously you're talking about, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon are going to be your 1-2 punch. And then you would imagine that Kylan Hill's that number 3 guy, and Patrick Taylor's been pretty good too. This training camp. So there's tons of depth on this Green Bay team.
Yeah.
And again, good problem to have, but there's going to be a lot of cuts that unfortunately are going to be kind of hard to take.
I want to address this question real quick because this is a pretty good question. Jason chimes in and says, is there a possibility that the extended look for Sternberger last night was an effort to give him game film for a potential trade? Good question. The answer is no.
Yeah, I agree.
You saw Sternberger have an extended look last night just because, we spoke about it earlier. Tanyan didn't play. DeGuara didn't play. Lewis didn't play. He was really, quotation fingers, your starting tight end last night, given who was inactive. Green Bay is not really the team to do a September trade with bigger name guys. Now, obviously, Jay Sternberger's had his struggles, but he is still a recent draft pick. Someone that they thought highly of until the emergence of Bob Tanyan. So I definitely do not think you will see a Sternberger trade, at least not in September. That does not eliminate the possibility for a trade maybe in the offseason. But no, I think we simply saw an extended look of Sternberger last night just because of all the inactives.
Yeah, and Sternberger, I believe, refresh my memory, he was a 3rd-round draft pick out of A&M, I believe, right? So
Texas A&M,
yeah, Texas A&M. So I think I don't think you're not going to see Green Bay early draft picks like that. You don't see a whole lot of Packer GMs throughout the history in the last 30 years or so, at least, especially Ron Wolf guys trade draft picks that haven't developed. That's the thing with sports and the world that we live in right now. We want to get on Wi-Fi. We want it to be the fastest thing in the world. And if it doesn't work right away, we want to throw it out the window. In football, in Green Bay football, it's about draft and develop. And we've had this conversation on multiple fronts with different people. Yeah. They're going to draft guys and they're going to develop them. When Rashawn Gary was drafted, he was not ready to play as an outside linebacker. When Darnell Savage was drafted, he technically wasn't ready to be a safety. When Jordan Love was drafted, he wasn't ready to be a starting quarterback. There's a reason that they're prospects. There's a reason that they're drafted in Green Bay. It's not to come in and play right away. Now, some of them do. We have Jair Alexander wasn't all that good his rookie year either. So it takes time. And I think with Jay Sternberger, you're going to see a guy that he did gain a little bit of weight this year, on purpose, not like, went out and ate McDonald's every day, but, he got a little bit thicker to play in the NFL. He was banged up last year. So I think you're going to see Green Bay develop him, especially with the leadership that they have in that tight end room with Mercedes Lewis and nobody's taken Robert Tunnon's spot. He's the number 1 tight end. So again, good problem to have. Great problem to have, but unfortunately, there's going to be some cuts that we do not like.
And let's not forget, not to take anything away or to speak poorly of Sternberger, but his development was really stunted by the emergence of Robert Tanyan.
Yeah.
When Robert Tanyan came to the Packers, he was a practice squad guy with the Lions. No one saw him developing the way that he did or at the speed that he did. No one looked at Robert Tanyan and was like, oh, that guy's going to be our future starter. That guy's going to be one of the better tight ends in the league. They were still looking at Sternberger as the guy that was going to take that next step. And unfortunately, he just didn't, but like you said, we both touched on it. The Packers aren't an organization to just give up on a guy after a couple of years or to trade him in September. So what's up?
I'll say this too. And I was completely wrong. I believe it was 2018. It was a draft I think it was Jair's draft. I wanted Josh Jackson in the first round. I'm a Badger fan, so I remember his pick 6 against the Badgers. I remember his game film at Iowa. The dude was a ball hawk, and I believe he was like one of the top cornerbacks rated in that draft in 2018.
He was
Brian Gutekunst's first draft, I believe, and I remember wanting him in the first round so bad. I wanted Josh Jackson so bad. I don't know what happened, man. He was targeted repeatedly last night and gave up reception after reception. I hate to say cut the guy. What are your thoughts on Josh Jackson? Because he just looked really bad last night. And again, he's not playing against anybody, that's, world beaters, he's going to face tougher guys. And now you're in a crowded cornerback room with the draft pick in Eric Stokes.
I don't necessarily know about cutting Josh Jackson, at least not this year. In terms of special teams, I think he could still make an impact as a gunner, coverage, what have you. He definitely should not be seeing the field on defense.
No, it was bad.
The only reason why he may see the field in 2021 on defense is if we're up or down 50-0, or if there's an injury. I mean, he just does not. He never took that next step. His game did not develop the way we all hoped. I was excited too, because I believe in that same draft there was another corner that came out of Iowa as well. Wasn't there 2 first-round cornerbacks that came out of Iowa in that draft?
Yes, you are right, actually. Yes.
And I can't remember who the other one was, but I just remember saying in that draft, like, oh man, I hope we just get one of them. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that other cornerback is any good either. We'll have to look that up. But I'm not on the board of cutting a guy unless if it boiled down to the last roster spot and it was between him and somebody that could make a bigger impact, then obviously get rid of Josh Jackson. But he at least knows the team. He knows the system. He could fit into a role if need be in an emergency situation. If Stokes and King go down and they need a guy to play, Josh Jackson could be that guy. But good Lord, did he look bad, dude? He looked
repeatedly,
bad.
Yes. They were. You could tell, early in that game, you said it. I said it to myself and everybody on Twitter. Yeah. Basically, they're targeting Josh Jackson. They were
picking on him big time. Yeah, they were picking on him big time.
But I mean, it goes to show too. There's not a whole lot of worry there because if you're looking at a depth chart, I mean, Josh Jackson's probably 4th or 5th on your team.
Yeah.
I mean, he sucked last night. You don't want to root for him to be cut. You hope he improves, but again, if all that doesn't come true and he does get cut, you're not probably going to suffer. They're
not going to take a step back if they release Josh Jackson. No. And let's put something to bed right now before the show ends. Let's cut the shit with Clay Matthews. Are you serious? Clay Matthews is not coming back. Why?
He was in Green Bay.
I know he was in Green Bay, but he's not coming back. He's 35. He's probably 5 years removed from his prime. There's nowhere for him to play. We've got 3 edge rushers: Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Zadarius Smith. Where's he going to play?
Honestly, if he came back and played in the middle, I would be okay with it. But I don't want to overpay him. That's the thing.
I can't. The only way you could justify it.
Do you remember when he came in as middle linebacker under Mike McCarthy?
That was 4 years ago.
Well, that's fair, but he was really good.
He was very good.
I'm not worried about. First off, he was out to dinner with Rodgers apparently Thursday night or Friday night. So he's recently in Green Bay. He was spotted at a restaurant.
I think that's where all of this has come from, though.
Well, it's come from Aaron Rodgers on Instagram again.
Well, I know, but I would like to think, and I may be naive here, I may be wrong. I'm hoping this is the case. I would like to think that was just more of a joke than it was them seriously campaigning to bring back Matthews. I think all that stuff came out just because they were at dinner and just because Matthews was in Green Bay. And I think they're just, they're bullshitting around on social media just to make a joke. That's what I would like to think is the case. I can't imagine that Bakhtiari, Cobb, and Rodgers sincerely thinks that Matthews would make an impact on this team. He wouldn't.
Yeah, it's not 2011.
The only way you could justify this, A, if he took the vet minimum, and B, he was willing to either, be the 4th edge rusher in line or move to middle linebacker and even then probably play a very small role on the team. But I'm of the contention that they were just messing around. They were just doing it for the laughs and the likes and not being sincere about bringing 35-year-old Clay Matthews back to play.
I hope you're right. That's just the annoying part of the Instagram game. And that's why I was a couple of weeks ago when we were at Coyotes, I got sick of it because it's just enough is enough with these little Instagram mind games. You're here to win. You're here to play football. You got a really good team around you. You don't need to go on Instagram at 11 o'clock at night and post a picture of a guy that is years and years past his prime. I know he had
and he didn't play last year. Just so everyone, he didn't play last year.
And he had,
He hasn't played since 2019.
2019, he had like 10 sacks before he broke his jaw with the Los Angeles Rams. Again, there's a connection there. Who did he play with at Los Angeles? So Joe Barry. So
he actually did have a decent year in 2019. Yeah, he only played in 13 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It could be a couple things. It could be like I could see a 1-day contract where he retires as a Packer, and they bring him in for 1 day. But if he was serious about coming back, I would assume we would have had some chirping, rumors, sources dropping, anything. But we haven't heard anything outside of that Instagram story. If he came back on a vet minimum, I wouldn't care.
It depends on who he's taking a roster spot from, though.
Well, if they're serious about Kamal Martin going to the outside, then they would be okay with a roster spot. I mean, that's something nobody has talked about, and I know we're wrapping up on time, but I'm a little concerned with Zadarius Smith. I'm a little bit concerned with a guy that wants an extension, should get an extension, and has not practiced yet with that back injury. I'm a little bit concerned.
Maybe they're being overcautious with Zadarius.
You hope.
I mean, you would like to think that. Are you speaking in terms of you're more concerned with the injury, or you're more concerned with maybe he's like holding out?
No, I don't think Zadarius is holding out. I'm concerned. Number one, real quick, let me clarify. I want him to stay in Green Bay. I love Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
He deserves an extension. He's been one of the better outside linebackers in football, continues to get disrespected by power rankings and PFF and ESPN and whatever. I'm concerned with the back injury for a guy that has a bad back. Like, the stuff doesn't get better. We're seeing it in Chicago, their second round draft pick, and Tevin Jenkins. He also has not practiced this whole year with a back injury. So I'm worried, especially with a guy like Zadarius Smith, that, pass rusher, a back injury is something that lingers, unfortunately, doesn't go away. I'm concerned. Yeah. I'm concerned that he hasn't practiced. Zadarius Smith's not a guy to miss practice. So I agree. I'm concerned for, what are we, 2.5 weeks into training camp or so? A little bit more than 2 weeks. So over 2 weeks. I'm a little concerned that he has not been on the field yet.
And to be honest with you, in terms of his contract, the only way he stays in Green Bay is if he gets an extension, because I think his cap number next year is atrocious.
Yeah.
What is it? Close to $30 million next year?
I think it's
26.
23.
Oh, is it 23?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's something like that.
We're, just quickly, I'll touch on this and then we'll wrap the show up. We thought the drama this year was bad. The drama next year is probably going to be even worse. Because not only are you going to have a repeat of the entire Aaron Rodgers saga, is he staying? Is he leaving? But you're going to have contract extension talks about Devontae Adams, about Jair Alexander, about Elgton Jenkins, about Zadarius Smith, about Preston Smith, about Alan Lazard, MVS. I mean, a lot of these guys next year will either be done with their contract or going into the last year of their contract. So it's going to be another annoying offseason next year, too, with all of the drama, all of the Adam Schefter bombs, all of the speculation from the local beat writers, and all of the crap that we continue to see on Twitter this offseason. It's probably going to be on repeat and even worse next year.
Yeah, unfortunately. The only thing that I have hope for is that we've seen it a lot with the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Clark and David Bakhtiari were signed to extensions during the season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time. I agree with you. Like, if it doesn't get solved within the season, with the Rodgers, with Devontae, Jair is going to be due some money. Elgton Jenkins is going to be due some money. Obviously, Zadarius Smith. If those aren't done during the regular season, next offseason is going to be what this was on steroids, unfortunately. So you would hope that, and Brian Gutekunst, again, got dragged through the mud, but the dude he's done a really good job. And I don't think he gets enough credit. I understand, there's players, the only player that he cut that Rodgers was upset about was Randall Cobb, his first 2018. That was the only one. A lot of these guys.
No, it was Jake Kummerow. Randall Cobb was still.
But Randall Cobb was Brian Gutekunst's first cut, 2018. He cut, but I guess Jake Kummerow, sure. But
the problem, I apologize really quickly. The problem with mid-season contract extensions, I don't think you're going to see any of those this season because they have to wait and see what happens with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, and that's my hope, is that at some point Rodgers is like, okay, yeah, and they sit down and they figure out what they're going to do as far as, okay, Rodgers, you want to be traded next offseason, or are you sticking with Green Bay? And hopefully they have an answer, because if he does not want to come back to Green Bay next year, and I know we're skipping over the actual season right now, but that frees up, 40% of your cap next year. So you're going to have a lot of flexibility as far as getting these guys signed, so they could, commit to guys like Za'Darius and Jair and obviously Jordan Love going forward, and it opens up a lot of your book. And I don't know if Davante Adams comes back without Aaron Rodgers.
I could totally see Davante coming back without Aaron Rodgers if they make him the highest paid wide receiver in the league. But I guess at that point, it's going to depend on what happens with Davante this year. I mean, if he balls out, if he has 15 touchdown receptions and 1,300 yards again, do you have any choice but to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the league? If he's hurt and, he only has 800 yards and, 7 or 8 touchdowns, then they probably move on from Adams and don't offer him that contract extension. But I've said this before, I don't think the Rodgers decision weighs on Adams at all, because I think Adams would be just fine playing with Jordan Love. He just wants the money. He is that one person where money matters.
He's basing that contract demands over
DeAndre Hopkins,
and it's not even a real contract. Like his guaranteed money versus annual salary money is not real, and that's what's frustrating with Davante Adams. I get it. He wants the money. He deserves the money. He's arguably one of the best receivers in football. But the thing about him is he's always hurt too. And I don't, missed 4 games last year. I don't know if he's played a full season yet. So
I don't think he has, actually. I don't think he's played 15 games in his career.
He's always hurt. It seems like and what's funny too is, we're getting into way off topic, but it always seems like when Davante Adams is gone. Now, keep in mind, I think Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in football, but when he's out, it feels like the offense is more fluid when he's not there.
They're 6-0 over his last 6 games missed. They're 6-0 and they average 33 points a game.
Just putting that out there.
So yeah. Oh God, we got the Godfather weighing in. Papa Alberts.
Kind of hard to disagree with him though.
If they're not in the hunt, trade Adams and Rodgers. Well, Adams won't have any trade value because he's on the final year of his contract. So you're not going to get a first-round pick out of Adams. You'll probably get like a 3rd or a 4th-round pick out of Adams. Rodgers, I could see that, but
I don't know
who's
going to
trade
the season though.
Who's going to trade for Rodgers in the middle of the season? The only team that would do that would be like, a Tampa or a Kansas City who want to win right away, and then they'll let Rodgers walk next year. I don't know.
We don't see a whole lot of in-season trades at the NFL.
My dad likes to chime in with some of the most outlandish takes and claims sometimes.
That's going to be interesting though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That's not even a conversation I'm prepared to have. They're going to be in the hunt. They're going to lead the division, probably wire to wire, and they're going to be one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC, right? Probably right next to Tampa and potentially Los Angeles.
It's a tough schedule. That's the only thing I'll say. I think they're the better talent team in the division. I think that that goes without saying. That I don't think there's a team really outside of Green Bay in the NFC North that's on a talent level as Green Bay and depth wise as well, but their schedule's hard, man. It's tough. They're back out west again for a few games.
It's tough, but there's still 12 or 13 winnable games on that schedule. They're going to go 5-1 against the division at a minimum, 5-1. They've got some tough home games, but there's really not a losable game on their home schedule.
No,
they should be favored. They should be favored in all 8 home games. And, they're going to have 3 or 4 victories on the road. So you're looking at 11 right there at a minimum.
Yeah.
I think that Baltimore game isn't as tough as a lot of people want to claim that it is. I'm going to put it on tape right now. Green Bay will be favored in that game.
Is that one at Baltimore?
It's at Baltimore. Green Bay will be favored in that game.
Last time they were at Baltimore, they won too. So
yeah, that was the game that Randall Cobb broke his leg.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap up this rendition of the Titletown Lounge podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I am Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. Of course, my colleague, you can find him on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. Of course, you can find the show on Twitter at Titletown Lounge. Before I hit end broadcast, I want to say a very happy birthday to Brandon's stepdaughter, Aubrey. She is turning 6. So very happy birthday to her. And we'll see you guys again on Monday. It'll be Monday. Next week will be Monday. I am out of town. but Brandon will be tackling the show. He will be the leader. So tune in next Monday. Are you saying 4 o'clock? Is that for sure yet?
We'll clarify it, but it's looking like it. Yeah.
Okay. Stay tuned to social media for this episode and for next week's episode, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in.